September 10th, 1941. Oryol Prison loomed under a gray, oppressive sky. Rain slicked the stone walls. The corridors inside were silent. Too silent. Prisoners huddled in their cells, whispering cautiously. Every sound carried. Every footstep could be the last they ever heard. Among them, Fritz Noether, a German mathematician, pressed his palms against the damp stone wall. His mind raced, as if solving an impossible equation might save him now. "Do you think they'll move us tonight?" he whispered. A young officer beside him shook his head. "We don't know, and that's worse." From the guard towers, shadows moved. Keys rattled. Metal clanged. Each sound was amplified in the tense silence. Guards exchanged quick, wary glances. Fear was written on their faces, but none dared hesitate. Far away in Moscow, Stalin's hand had signed the order. No trial, no warning, no appeal, only execution. A special operation, as the reports called it. A list of names, each crossed out in red ink. A death sentence executed with precision. Inside the cells, hope mingled with dread. Perhaps the war outside would delay them. Perhaps the Germans would reach the city first. But deep down, they knew. The order had come from Stalin himself. And when Stalin decided, no force could reverse it. By midnight, the first names were called. The prisoners stood, trembling. Blindfolds were tied. Shackles clicked. Chains rattled. They were led out into the unknown. Fritz's heart hammered. He scanned the faces of his companions. Fear mirrored his own. Whispers died in the cold night. The prison gates closed behind them. Silence returned to the stone corridors. Heavier now, suffocating. And somewhere far away Stalin watched. Not with anger, not with joy, with calculation. Each name crossed off the list was a measure of control. Every heartbeat, every shiver, another note in the symphony of fear he orchestrated. By sunrise, the first prisoners would vanish into Medvedev Forest, leaving only shadows and echoes behind. The night clung to the road like a shroud. Trucks rattled over uneven ground, carrying prisoners bound and blindfolded. Wooden boards groaned under their weight. Chains clinked with each jolt. Fritz Noether's breath came in shallow bursts. Every sound, each cough of the engine, each shift of weight, felt like a countdown. "Stay close," whispered the young officer beside him. "Close won't save us," Fritz muttered. The guards were statues of rigid obedience, their faces unreadable, their rifles held like extensions of Stalin's will. Hesitation could cost them their own lives. Outside, the forest loomed. Trees whispered secrets in the wind. Shadows stretched across the road, and every turn seemed endless. Prisoners stumbled. Guards snapped them back with cold precision. Panic trembled beneath the surface, waiting to erupt. In Moscow, a brief report reached Stalin. "All prisoners are en route, Comrade General Secretary." He didn't smile, not yet. The fear was enough. Every tremor in the prisoners' hearts, every whispered prayer, was proof that his machinery of control was flawless. Hours crawled by. The trucks finally stopped at a clearing at the forest's edge. The prisoners were unshackled, yet still blindfolded. The sounds of the forest, rustling leaves, distant animals, the occasional bird, were unfamiliar now, threatening. A guard whispered almost mockingly, "Step carefully." The prisoners had nowhere to turn, no light, no guide. Only the forest ahead, vast and indifferent, hiding the end Stalin had prepared. When the blindfolds were removed, dawn broke over Medvedev Forest. The prisoners froze. Before them stretched the clearing, a place both beautiful and terrible in its stillness. The forest seemed to breathe, waiting, watching, knowing. Fritz's stomach twisted. One thought ran through his mind, cold and absolute. There is no turning back. The forest was alive with quiet menace. Mist hovered between the trees, curling around the prisoners' ankles like a ghostly shroud. Dawn light barely penetrated the canopy, casting long, trembling shadows. Fritz Noether took a hesitant step forward. The clearing before them stretched wider than he had imagined. Rows of freshly dug earth lay like scars across the ground. The remaining prisoners froze, eyes wide, hearts hammering in unison. Whispers rose among the prisoners, fragile prayers or desperate attempts to find courage. A young officer muttered, "We've been marked, all of us." The guards moved with machine-like precision, rifles glinting in the pale morning light. Every twitch, every heartbeat, every breath was a signal in the silent game of life and death. In Moscow, Stalin read his report. All prisoners have arrived at the Medvedev clearing, Comrade General Secretary. A faint smirk crossed his face. Not triumph, but the satisfaction of a man who measured power in fear and obedience. The roll call began. Names echoed through the mist. Some responded quickly, voices shaking. Others faltered. Hesitation was deadly. Every falter, every quiver, every human instinct to resist was met with cold enforcement. Shots rang out, muffled but undeniable. Panic surged through the prisoners. A few fell immediately. Fritz gritted his teeth, pressing forward, desperately clinging to thought, to reason. Logic could not save them here, nor intellect, nor courage. The forest seemed to watch silently, swallowing the screams and the bodies alike. The shadows stretched, elongating every heartbeat, every gasp, every tremor of fear. Fritz scanned the faces of his companions. Some were gone, some stared blankly, numb with shock. The realization struck him. Stalin's reach was absolute. No one escaped it. And yet, amidst the terror, a cruel precision persisted. Every movement, every falter, every shiver, Stalin's will had calculated it all. The first echoes of gunfire had faded, leaving an eerie, suffocating silence. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath, as if afraid to disturb the aftermath. Fritz Noether stood frozen, chest tight, stomach twisting. Around him, the surviving prisoners huddled in shock, eyes wide, hands trembling. Names and faces of those who had fallen flashed in his mind. Friends, colleagues, strangers, all swallowed by the forest in a single, calculated operation. The guards moved silently, herding the remaining prisoners with precision. No words were spoken. Every glance, every twitch, every faltering step could draw immediate punishment. Fear was the language here, and it was absolute. In Moscow, reports continued to reach Stalin. Comrade General Secretary, the operation proceeded as planned. All prisoners accounted for. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. Each heartbeat of terror, each tremor of fear, was already a victory. Control was measured not in lives spared, but in obedience and terror. The survivors whispered in muted tones, trying to piece together the incomprehensible. Some murmured prayers, others stared silently, staring into the mist as if their minds could make sense of the impossible. Fritz looked at the forest, sensing every shadow, every sound. He realized the forest itself had become a witness, an indifferent observer of the power that had just played out within its depths. A faint, bitter thought rose in him. How could one man hold so much power? But the answer was already written in the trembling figures, in the empty spaces where their companions had stood, and in the forest's cold, silent gaze. Stalin's reach, his calculation, his unyielding control, this was the world they now lived in. And the forest would remember, long after the echoes of fear had faded. The sun rose fully over Medvedev Forest, but its light brought no warmth. The trees stood tall and indifferent, whispering with the wind, hiding the scars of the morning's events. The survivors moved like shadows, silent and shaken. Every step reminded them of what had been lost, the friends, the colleagues, the familiar faces that would never return. The clearing was empty, yet it seemed to breathe with the memory of death. Fritz Noether felt the weight of every name, every life extinguished. His mind replayed the events in slow, unbearable detail. The forest had consumed them all, yet left him alive. Why him? Why any of them? The guards returned to Moscow, faces pale, minds numb. They delivered their reports, precise and unemotional. Comrade General Secretary, the operation is complete. All prisoners accounted for. Stalin leaned back, eyes cold, unreadable. He did not celebrate, he did not gloat. For him, fear was the ultimate tool, a weapon sharper than any army, sharper than any law. Every trembling heartbeat, every shiver of terror had served its purpose. Across the Soviet Union, the story of Medvedev Forest remained hidden. Families never knew what had become of their loved ones. The survivors carried the memories in silence, forever marked by the knowledge that fear was the currency of power. Fritz stepped away from the clearing, heart heavy, yet alive. He had glimpsed the machinery of control, the terrifying precision of a mind that trusted no one, feared everyone, and measured loyalty in obedience and terror. And far away, Stalin smiled faintly, not from joy, but from the knowledge that fear had worked exactly as intended. The forest remained silent, a ghostly witness, and the lesson lingered. In Stalin's world, survival was not about courage, intelligence, or innocence. It was about navigating the labyrinth of fear he created. Medvedev Forest would remember, so would the living, and Stalin's hand, though unseen, reached farther than any could imagine.